there's this assumption that if you get the right tech, your problems will be solved. And maybe the problem is you're not growing. Maybe the problem is you can't scale your growth. Maybe the problem, there are a number of problems that you might be trying to solve. For the person listening to this podcast, it's probably you're trying to grow. You may be a smaller firm and you're trying to kind of start that growth wheel, get the growth wheel turning and moving. Or maybe you're trying to scale it, or maybe you're trying to do something new to stimulate growth because it's grown stagnant, right? So we talk a lot about growth. And I think that a lot of tech firms say we help you grow. And that is 100% true. Tech can help you grow, but there is so much more to it than that. So when I've talked to advisors at conferences, not just when they're evaluating seeds, but at conferences in previous roles, my own dad is an advisor. It's a tricky thing to select your tech as an advisor. There's so much going on, especially in wealth management businesses. There's everything that happens behind the scenes. There's so much knowledge that the advisors bringing to the table about all of these wealth management topics as well. And then there's just generally running the business. Like, what do you need to do to run the business? So I think it would be really helpful to kind of zoom out and talk about where tech fits into your business. Like, where does it fit, and what else needs to be going right for the tech to really make a difference and get you to meet your goals. And then we can talk about, like, more tactically, once that's all covered, now how do we select tech? What are some of the best practices, in at least in my experience and your experience? And again, we don't know everything, but in our experience, what are some of the best practices when you're going about selecting your technology and building your tech stack?
Yeah, I think that sort of silver bullet mentality is so easy to go toward, right? There's so many things to build and so many things to think about. And it feels like a heavy lift. So rather than do that to some extent, what's the piece of technology that's just going to help me sort of leapfrog that? And I think the growth thing, the amount of times I talk to advisors who have very little defined in terms of their story, the experience they're going to deliver, the services they're going to deliver, how they're going to deliver those services, what human capital they're going to, who they're even selling to. Not a lot of that is defined.
Yeah.
And they're asking me questions about, what marketing technology should they use to sort of blast the market with. And again, the response is, well, to tell what story?
Yeah.
Like, there is no, sure, you can go pay for leads in theory, but then how many are you really closing? At what cost? What's the human capital just to create that process? And then once they're onboarded, what are you delivering?
Yeah.
So
and what'll happen if it works? Say it starts working, then what?
Exactly.
There's also that problem of, like, you do have to kind of be planning for it to work. If all these things are happening in unison, then there are a lot of other things to be evaluating, which I think I've noticed a lot of advisors are not, especially small firms. That human capital side is so critical, and not thinking through that ahead of the tech stack makes you have to reselect and change your tech stack as you grow. This happens in startups a lot as well. Some of it's unavoidable, but some of it I think could be avoided with a little more thoughtfulness ahead of the tech selection process.
I guess a way to think about it, and you've pointed this out, I've watched you point this out to advisors who are struggling with bandwidth, right? Mm-hmm. So they have some baseline game plan, and they're struggling with, like, sort of generally administrative or operational bandwidth. And so they're kind of saying, is there a piece of technology that'll just make me more efficient and solve all my problems? Or do I just hire another human to, help solve these problems?